Hello and welcome to another live edition of the Social Club, brought to you by tvsportsblog.com. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, I'm going to be joined by the panel to make our Premier League predictions ahead of the new season. I'm sure you're going to disagree with loads of them. You might even agree with some of them. Get involved in the live chat as well. We've got plenty to come for you tonight. Hopefully lots of laughs and hopefully some sound predictions. Hello and welcome back to the Social Club, our general Premier League show. And I'm delighted to be joined by the regular panel of Mr. Simon Alavi and Dan De Luca. Simon, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you, sir. My Sofa Sports News original T-shirt.
That's
many years ago.
Remembering the old days, the good old days. Dan De Luca looking very sharp in your Italy shirt and your flashy haircut. I'm impressed.
Yeah, well, Italy had a good result last night for the first time since this shirt was released. So I thought, I thought I'd wheel it out.
He thought he'd make an effort. Yeah, Italy played really, really well last night. I quite enjoyed watching that, I've got to be honest. Before we get into it, we've got to do a little bit of a cheers for Mr. Simon Alavi, because since the last time he was on the show, he's become a dad again. So congratulations to
Cheers.
Mr. Alavi. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Congratulations. And,
So
I'm sure.
So that's an espresso.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Named after your brother.
Named after my brother, that's it. Hopefully he's an Arsenal fan as well. We're working on it. I want to say a big thank you to tvsportsblog.com, who are, of course, our sponsors for this show. Without their support, we wouldn't have been able to do half the things that we've done over the last year or so. So a massive thank you to John Wright and the team over there. Thank you for all your continued support. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in live as well, because we've had some incredible numbers on the live shows lately. And we've seen the subscriber count go through the roof, and it's just been amazing. It's been a really good few months or so. So a big thank you to every single one of you guys as well. And if you're listening to this back on playback as well, or via the podcast platforms as well. Right, let's get down to business. And of course, as I said right at the top of the show, this is our Premier League predictions show. There's so much to try and predict. And as I said right at the top, I'm sure there are bound to be some ridiculous predictions. I'm sure there are going to be some pretty good shouts. And before he mentions it, De Luca, for example, tipped Bournemouth to go down this season. And what a shout that was. I don't think many people saw that one coming. So congrats, De Luca, which leads me on to the bottom three. Let's start from the bottom three. And De Luca, I want to know your bottom three. And briefly, because obviously we've got quite a bit to get through, why have you picked those three teams?
Okay, Fulham, because they're rubbish. They had to, they didn't get out of the Championship with any kind of confidence, really. They're all over the place. They needed Brentford to lose about 4 games, so I don't see enough in Fulham really to stay up. I am going to say that Leeds United are going to go down as well.
Big shout.
I think it's a big shout, and I think a lot of people are going to tip them to stay up because of the size of the club. And also the manager, but I don't really think that's enough. I've not seen that many shrewd purchases, and I think the occasion is going to be a little bit too big for them. Like Aston Villa did worse than expectations, and they only just stayed up. I think it's going to be too big for them. And I'm actually going to tip Brighton to go down this season as well for similar reasons. I think they're not really improving over the last couple of years at all. So that'll be my outside tip to go down from the establishment. Like, I think they've got some goals in the squad. I don't want to upset Arsenal fans by saying nil Mopai, but he can chip in with a goal. But I think you've got the likes of Lewis Dunk, who probably will be upset he hasn't had a big move, and I don't think they're going to have that same sort of cohesion at the back that has got them out of trouble. So I'm going to say Fulham. Leeds, and Brighton. And I'll even say in that order.
Okay,
Push it out
interesting
there.
stuff. So Fulham, Brighton, and Leeds are Fulham, Leeds, and then Brighton, I should say, is Dan DeLuca's bottom three. He's given you his reasons. Let us know what you think in the comments section as well. This is the opportunity for you guys to put your bottom threes as well in the live chat, and we'll pick out some of those once we finish this particular segment. Alavi, let's have your bottom three and the reasons why.
I've only agreed with one of Dan's. I very, very, very nearly chose Brighton. So I do agree, especially with what he said in terms of the cohesion. But I didn't go with them in the end. I went Fulham as the one I agree with Dan. Scott Parker said he's not going to do what they did last time, which was the sort of 100 million, blanket spend when they got up. I just feel that if Mitrovic gets injured, they're in real trouble. A lot's probably expected of, Seri and Anguissa, and I don't think they can deliver. I think Scott Parker's trying to be shrewd in the transfer market, but almost too shrewd. He's signing players like Robinson for 1.5 million from Wigan as cover, and actually, I know it didn't work last time when they spent that much money, but times have changed, and that doesn't mean that you don't then need to go and spend another 50, 100 million. Actually, they do need to go and spend that much. But he's not doing it based on the fact that it wrong last time. And sometimes you just have to accept that a tactic that worked last time may actually work this time. So I'll go for them. The other one I'm going to go for is West Brom. I wouldn't say there's a particular reason, bar the fact that I think the lack of experience. I think that the teams that stayed up last year, so Dan mentioned Villa. Villa's a great example. You learn how to stay up. Like, you learn how to win. I guess both the teams you support, they already know that. But you do learn how to win, or you learn how to stay up. So I think just by process of all the other teams staying up, I've gone for West Brom. And here's my outside shout, because I don't think you should ever go for a whole prediction and just literally just copy the odds.
Safe.
Yeah. So my outside shout, now Harry, you won't be a fan of this. I'm going to go Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace?
Yeah, a massive outside shout. I think that Keylou Zaha, I know you're sold on this player that they've bought from QPR, which we were briefly discussing before the show. This is what I think is going to happen. They've got the 9th, I think the 10th, top 10 highest wage bill in the league, right? I think that the board will get annoyed. I think they'll sack your friend Roy. And I think basically what happened to Watford will happen to them. They'll get the wrong manager in, and I think they'll go out. And there's just something about, sometimes you get a feeling that isn't necessarily based on, something substantive. I think that's what it is with me. So I'm going West Brom, Fulham, and Palace. I can completely see Dan's reasons for Brighton. I literally had Brighton crossed out Palace, but I'm going those three.
Well, I was going to ask Dan a question, but he's done a runner out.
Give us your three while you.
I'm not sure what's happened there, but I mean, I wanted to just ask you on the West Brom thing, because I feel like a lot of people are kind of looking at West Brom and saying, they're a bit of a yo-yo club, and that's the only reason that they're kind of predicting them to go down. But I mean, Slaven Bilic is, in my opinion, a very good manager. I still think, though, that they need strengthening. Is that what you've based that on? It isn't on the manager, is it? It's on the squad.
No, absolutely not. It's not on the manager. It's on exactly the point you've made about being a yo-yo club. Do I want to join a club that... So if you're a player who a club like a bottom, say 5, 6, 7 club will want to purchase, do you go for a yo-yo club that could potentially go down, or do you actually look at Brighton and go, do you know what, they could go down, but they've shown some stability in the last few years, so I'll go there? It's absolutely not based on the manager. I do think that and I think we're all guilty of this, and if a football fan says they're not, then they're lying. I think when looking at relegation, every football fan looks at the 3 teams that have gone up and assesses them first.
Yeah,
I think it's just a psychological thing that we all do, and if you don't do it, you're lying. Like, we all do it, right? So that's what I essentially did, and then I couldn't get a reason as to why they came out of my bottom 3. So, but I'd love to be wrong because I like him as a manager. I like him as a pundit. I liked him as a player. So, yeah.
A question I was going to put to both of you as well before I sort of reveal my bottom three, and I don't want to. I'm not going to give away my complete bottom three, but I've picked Fulham as well, and that's what prompted me to think about this question. We all talk about the fact that, and Luca mentioned it, that when Fulham came up, they didn't exactly, obviously they went to the playoff final. It was an automatic promotion, etc., etc. I think everyone that was watching that playoff final wanted Brentford to win, and wanted Brentford to win, given the way they had sort of carried themselves throughout the season. And you guys, like DeLuca said, and I guess you're kind of the same opinion that, Fulham maybe don't have what it takes, but the fact that they were so consistent in the Championship and that they did hang in there in sort of around that second, third position, is that a sign that under Scott Parker they're a little bit more, without playing this amazing football, they're a little bit more, I guess, what's the word? They get over the line a little bit more. They got a little bit more grit, a little bit more determination, a little bit more streetwise. Would you say that's fair?
I think it's fair when you're playing Middlesbrough. It's a whole different story when you're playing some of the Premier League teams. I'll let Didier answer because he's just come back. But the question essentially was, are we essentially, glossing over Fulham's stability in the last sort of quarter of the season and what got them in the Premier League?
I'm not sure. It's hard to say how stable they were because it was a 3-horse race. They ended up fourth. Although a lot of that was down to Brentford putting in an extraordinary run of 10 wins in a row up until the last couple of games where they choked a little bit. I think they've been good at Championship level, but if you look at the team, every year there's a team who comes up and you write off completely for a ball's kick. Okay, this year that was Sheffield United for everyone, and they proved us wrong. So, there's potential to do that. But if you look at the teams who have proved us wrong over the years, and one of them even went down, like Blackpool. These teams, they either play brilliant, exciting football, and they get a load of points before Christmas and hang on for dear life, or they're really astute defensively. I don't think Fulham are either of those things. I think they play nice football, but it's not breathtaking. It's not. Do
you know what it is with Fulham is that they don't fit in either of the two extremes. Exactly, so I think Brentford would have come up and gone down because they would have put their philosophy, or whatever you want to call it, above what they needed to do. I think other teams like a Bolton, like a Blackburn, they've stayed up in previous seasons because they couldn't care less what Burnley couldn't care less what people think about them, and they play a certain way and they do get results. We don't like it, but they get results. Yeah. And I think, don't know if you agree, Dan, but Fulham are in that mid-ground where they almost can't do either that well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. And normally you're saying, you've got to find 3 worse teams than Fulham.
Yeah.
That's what a task is. It's not like, you look at some teams, they come up and you think, well, they're pretty good. With Fulham, you're automatically scrambling around trying to find 3 worse teams. And I think it's a struggle, a real struggle.
Dan, when you did it, did you instantly look at the 3 teams that went up and see whether they're fit for relegation?
Yeah, that's the starting point.
So I don't know why everyone does it.
Well, it's natural though, isn't it? Because you're looking at teams that haven't been performing at Premier League level. So naturally, you're going to look at those first. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it that way. My bottom 3, as I've said already, I included Fulham. I've included Brighton in there. I feel like with Brighton, I feel like they've been kind of flirting with relegation for a while now. And, you get certain games, for example, their game against Arsenal after Project Restart, where they pull out a result out of the bag and it seems to gloss over the fact that they had been shit for the last 3 months before that and that they were shit after that as well. And they seem to always find a way to get that result, that lucky result against the big side, that scalp almost, that kind of propels them into safety, and I feel like they've gotten away with it for a while now. And when I look at Graham Potter's side, I think that they, as you were saying, Alavi, I love to see teams play good football, but I think that Brighton are in danger of trying to evolve too quickly under Graham Potter, and that could be their downfall in terms of their style. So
yeah, they lose it when they play at the back. They lose it more than any other team in that bottom 10, don't they?
Yeah, so I do worry about Brighton, and my third team, although I really admire Slaven Bilic and I really like him as a manager, I've put West Brom. And I've put West Brom because I looked at their squad and I just don't see the quality there anywhere, in fact, in that side to keep them up. I feel like they're just a mixture of sort of former Premier League journeymen, sort of mixed with a few decent young talents, but are they going to be enough? Are they going to have enough to stay up? I highly doubt that. Let's take a quick look at some of you guys's bottom threes as well in the live chat. Omar, he says Brighton, Villa, and Fulham.
Villa.
Jay says Fulham, West Brom, and Villa. So a couple citing Villa. Mike says Villa, West Brom, Fulham. Craig says Fulham, West Ham, Southampton. What else have we got? Jamie.
You want to get a pound on that prediction, whoever that was.
What's that one? Sorry.
Fulham,
West Ham, Southampton. Yeah, it's definitely worth a shout. What else have we got? Stelios says, I agree with Alavi. Fulham, Albion, and Palace to go down.
Hey.
Jamie says, my bottom three, Villa, Fulham, and Brighton. A couple of people questioning that Southampton shout in the live comments as well, but it is a big shout. It's a bold shout, but you can never rule it out. Me personally, I think that whilst Ralph Hasenhüttl is in charge of Southampton, there's no danger of them going down.
Do you know who are the four? Do you know who are the four favourites to go down? I looked it up.
Go on.
So the four favourites to go down are West. So they can't separate the 17th and 16th. West Brom, Fulham. No. West Brom, Fulham, Newcastle, and Villa at the moment.
Newcastle's
weird, isn't it?
I think.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you, Harry, about this luck thing, right? Is that luck? Because I use this analogy in boxing. So with Dillian White, I thought he'd lose because he kept getting lucky, right? Like there was a couple of decisions that I didn't think should have gone his way, and he pulls something out of the bag, and this and that and the other. With Brighton, what you say about lucky, they're riding with luck. Are they riding with luck? Or actually, do you then after a while just have to give them credit and be like, do you know what? You've stayed in the league for X amount of seasons on a low budget. Like, how much is riding your... Do you see what I mean? Like, I use this analogy a lot in boxing, so I agree with what you're saying, but sometimes I look back, when I use it in football, I don't think it always quite works.
It's both, isn't it? It's both. You know, they rely on having that luck, and it's calculated. But the reason why I picked Bournemouth last year, and the reason why a team like... There are some teams who float around the bottom for a few seasons in a row, which is why the Crystal Palace suggestion isn't that outlandish.
No.
They float around for so long, and then you look at some of their better players, and you think, have they got the stomach to do it all over again?
Or will they leave?
Yeah, and if they stay, is that worse? And that's the situation with Brighton with Bournemouth going into last season for me. It was the same sort of players getting older and the stomach to keep dragging their performances out. And there are other teams, they've had a bad season and they're down there. They'll probably pull away next year, and it was just a one-off. I remember when Leeds went down, there was like 2 or 3 seasons down there. When Villa went down the first time, which was extraordinary, really, the size of the club, but it was 2 or 3 seasons just getting away with it. And I think Brighton are in that sort of place where, they're being sucked a bit closer than they would have liked. It's not like West Brom where they were finishing 10th and 11th, or Newcastle where they're having scares, but they're getting away comfortably. I think with Brighton, it's been too close for the last 3 seasons, and it's got to run out eventually, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think there's so many variables in football that there's got to be an element of luck somewhere. And I feel like with Brighton, what they quite often do is they take scalps off of big sides that they really have no right to beat, yet they can't seem to produce consistently against the sides that they should be beating. And I feel like that shows that you've got a consistency issue, because you're able to raise your game at certain points, but you're not able to do that throughout the course of a season. I mean, are we, just before we move on from the relegation talk, are we completely dismissing the point that actually, probably at least for the first half of the season, there's likely to be no crowds in stadiums? Are the likes of Leeds, for example, going to suffer from that? Because we're talking about Leeds, and for me, I've done a lot of work on Leeds this year. I've been covering them really, really closely for work. And one of the things that stood out to me is how much that club is loved by its supporters. I would say it's an extraordinary club in that sense. So, I mean, Dan, you're the only one that put Leeds in your bottom three. Did you factor that in, the fact
Yeah.
that they'll be playing at an empty Ellen Road?
Yeah, absolutely, I did, and I said that I'd be a bit of an anticlimax and all that sort of stuff. Imagine being the size of the club you are and feeling you belong in the Premier League and having that home support, and then you eventually get promoted after 16 years and no one's there for the first couple of months, and then when you are there you can't cheer and it's quarter full, and you've only got to look at Sheffield United's form after the lockdown to see the difference that it made. The clubs who, with those really boisterous home support that take scalps, like you mentioned, like Brighton scalps, they come at home.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. So, you shit teams very rarely go away and do jobs on teams, do they? And that crowd is a factor. So Leeds will lose early points in the season that they would have won otherwise, and over the course of 38 games that adds up. So that's absolutely been factored in.
Cool. Let's move on to the top four predictions. Obviously, we're going to be doing the relegation, which we've just finished covering. We're going to touch on the top four, and we're going to each be given our surprise package prediction of the season and our surprise flop. So, Alavi, let's come to you for your top four. Let's have them in order, starting with your Premier League champions for the 2020-21 campaign.
For the third season running, so been right once, wrong last season, but this third season, I'm going to go City. Somehow in my head, they're still the best team in the league, and it makes no sense, but I just think they can pull out a couple of more signings. I think Phil Foden, I was going to say could shine, but he's done more than that in the last couple of days. He's put plenty of balls in the back of the net. And I think Bernardo Silva could regain some form. I think they've got the most complete player in the Premier League. Obviously, it's between them and Liverpool. I'll be very surprised if anyone doesn't go with Liverpool. I just feel that Liverpool's reliance on the imperious and the colossal Virgil van Dijk is just more than City have on any other player. And if they lose him, they haven't got much cover that I would deem as robust as someone like Virgil van Dijk. So I just, I know he hasn't done well in the Champions League. I just feel that Pep, over the course of the season, can help City win the league again. I know Messi looks like he's staying, but if he did go to the Premier League somehow, you would think it's going to be to City. So therefore, I've got Liverpool naturally in second. I think if anyone doesn't have those two in the top two, then, well, they could be right, obviously, but I think it would be a mad prediction, and one you'd have to give great credit for if they did get it right. Then I did rule Arsenal out, I have to say, so it was then between Newcastle.
I was going to say, the takeover hasn't happened,
No. It's Man United, Spurs and Chelsea. I know that the bookies have it as Chelsea and Man United. I'm actually going to go United and Spurs. I feel that Chelsea will miss out. I feel that despite them making 3 ridiculous signings for 200 million, I don't see how they're going to balance that with the young players that Frank Lampard did so well to bring through. If Man United can sign Sancho and the Madrid left back, with the two midfield that they've got, if they combine like they did towards the end of last season, then I can see United pipping Chelsea. And the reason I've put Spurs and Jose Mourinho is very simply, for me, he is still Jose Mourinho, and I just cannot see him managing a side for a full season that doesn't get in the top 4. And I might just be being swayed by this documentary, but I'm going City, Liverpool, Man United, and Spurs as my top 4 in that order.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think the documentary certainly having an impact on your opinion of Jose Mourinho.
I've got those glasses with like the string round. He wears them.
I've renamed it the Jose Mourinho Show because it's literally about him, isn't it? It's nothing else.
It's really good. We got a really good insight of the Pochettino, sacking. Really good.
Yeah.
You do wonder what kind of content Amazon had before Pochettino was sacked.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the outtake. What the documentary would have looked like. it's been
I mean,
great insight to have a big club as to what goes on, and the day in the life of a footballer is it's more than just going out to training. You watch Jose Mourinho turn up with all his charisma, and you just wonder if he wasn't there, what kind of show they would have had.
Yeah, agreed. It would have been so dead and dull with Maurizio Pochettino. And I don't want to digress because I'm going to come to you, De Luca, just a second. I know you guys haven't seen the latest 3 episodes that have come out just yet, but there is a scene with Danny Rose. You may have seen some videos of this floating around.
Yeah.
Now, watch that. And when you have watched that, you will see that Jose Mourinho, the way he acts in that situation, is completely for the cameras. Because I am certain that the Jose Mourinho we've watched for years and years and years would have reacted to what Danny Rose did in a completely different way. So let me know what you think once you've seen that. It is an interesting
I
watch.
don't know if I could watch another Harry Kane team talk.
Yeah, well, he gets injured in the next round of episodes, so there's not much of him.
Seen him dribbling out his mouth. That's about it.
De Luca, let's have it. Your top four.
It does kind of.
He's like David Brent, isn't it?
You look at the team Tottenham have had over the last 5 years and the near misses, and you watch some of them team talks, and they do start to make sense.
Yeah.
Did you reckon he gave it before the Champions League final?
Someone give us something to hang on to, and it's just like score goals, boys. Fuck it.
De Luca, let's have your top 4. Let's have your top 4 and why.
I think Tottenham will win the league with Harry Kane giving those motivational speeches. I just can't look beyond Tottenham, to be honest. Who do I think?
Harry Kane.
So here we go. I think Manchester City will win the league. Not because, as you know, I don't like their manager. I still think they've got better players, and I think they've spent a lot of money to fix their obvious gaps. So it's going to be very, very hard for them not to win the league. So I'm going to say Man City will win the league. I think Manchester United will finish in the top 4. I really, really believe in Jose Mourinho's ability to get points that he's got no right to get. And I think Tottenham's last 8 games, when he just had a few weeks working with Tottenham, showed what he's capable of. But I still don't think the players are good enough. So I don't think Tottenham are gonna have enough to get in the top 4, even with Jose Mourinho and his magic wand. So I've discounted Tottenham. Liverpool will get in the top 4. And just one for my friends here. I'm really close. I'm really close to saying I think Arsenal are going to do it. And I'm not going to say that yet, but I'm going to tell you why I've been going through the mill for the last hour. Arsenal have a bit of momentum. There hasn't been a long summer to lose that momentum. Everyone's feeling good, whereas in the last summer, everyone at the club was feeling bad, with the exception of the fans who got excited about mediocre signings. But this year, there's been a couple of sensible signings in there. And I think they can carry that momentum on and get off to a good start in the season. And like I said about Sheffield United, Arsenal's upturning form coincides with other clubs having no fans in the ground, and Arsenal are used to that. And I think they'll be able to ride that wave for a little bit longer. So
that whole speech was just for that joke, wasn't it?
It's how you tell them. So
Delivery.
I am going to say Manchester City are going to win the league. I think Manchester United are going to finish second. I think my surprise package this season is going to be Liverpool, and that's because I don't think Liverpool are going to do as well as everyone thinks. So I'm going to go for a reverse surprise as opposed to picking a team to come out of the doldrums. I think Liverpool are going to finish 3rd or below, and I think they're going to do near what they did before. And I think Chelsea will just pick Arsenal to 4th place. And the only reason I went for Chelsea above Arsenal in the end is because I still think Arsenal are in that place where there's just not quite enough goals from midfield. And I think there will be teams who will find ways to keep Aubameyang quiet. And that's literally the only reason. So I think Arsenal will finish 5th, and I think Tottenham will finish 6th or possibly below.
Right. So your top 4 is Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, and then Chelsea. Yeah. So Liverpool are not your surprise package; they're your surprise flop. I think is So Liverpool are your surprise failure.
They're my surprise flop. I think Timo Werner will be my player who flops. I don't think he's going to do as well as all the hype. But I just think Liverpool are gonna surprise people this year in a reverse sort of way.
Cool. All right, let's go on to my top four. I'm really interested to hear sort of that you guys both went for Manchester City as the champions. I've really been struggling to come to a decision on this. I do think that Manchester City have the best squad in the Premier League. I've always said that. I think they play the best football. I think City at their best are better than Liverpool at their best.
That's
if that
what I
makes
base
sense.
it on. Yeah, that's what I've always based it on.
And but in terms of, I mean, Luca said that City have spent money to rectify their problems. I don't really think they have rectified their problems yet. In terms of this transfer window, I think that there's still time, and I think that they probably will make some moves in the transfer market. But I'm gonna go with City just because I think that the likes of De Bruyne and some of the other players they got around there, I really rate Raheem Sterling. I know he gets a lot of heat and he splits opinion, but I highly rate Raheem Sterling. Alavi mentioned Phil Foden, who I think is just another excellent player coming through the ranks, and you're going to see more of him this season. I'm sure of that. Bernardo Silva went off the boil a little bit last season, but we know he's got it. We know he's got the capability. I just think there's so many good players in that side, and I think that City are one central defender away from being formidable again. If Aymeric Laporte stays fit and they bring in someone to slot in alongside him who's, of a similar level, then I think. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about Nathan Ake. I mean, I look at him and I think, yeah, he's all right, but is he?
He's class, man.
Is he the level of? Look at Man City. Look at Liverpool. You look at Van Dijk and you think Van Dijk is that good that he can make whoever's next to him look good.
But Van Dijk is the comparison with Laporte. So
but Laporte is not as good as Van Dijk, though. That's the point I was going to make.
But the rest of the midfield and the strike force are better than Liverpool's midfield or strike force. So.
Yeah, that I agree with. I just think that that City still need a top class centre back. I know they've got Ake in, but I'm not convinced that he's the answer to that. He's an upgrade on some of the shit they've got on Stones, on Otamendi, on playing Fernandinho at centre back, which was something that Pep resorted to last season. So
yeah, shameful, absolutely shameful.
For that, I think they're still a little bit short of being a complete side, but I still think that they're probably going to be the champions again. So I'm going to go with Man City. Second, I go with Liverpool. I still think that despite what we've been saying about Liverpool and despite the fact that, maybe they're going to find it impossible to hit that level for a third season consecutively, I still think that they're better than anybody else at this moment in time. And I don't know how those Chelsea signings are going to fit in, whether they're going to propel Chelsea up to that level or not. That remains to be seen. But at this moment in time, as we're recording this on the 8th of September, before the season started, I still think Liverpool will at least be the second best team in the division. Third, I'm going with Manchester United. I do expect them to do some more significant business before this window closes. Obviously, Donny van der Beek's come in, great player, only adds to a fantastic midfield that they already have. Maybe you could argue that they need a top class centre half, I think, and that's why I can't put them any higher than third. But in terms of what they've got and the fact that this is what going to be Ollie's, I know it's going to be he's had 1.5 seasons. It's going to be what his second full season. I think based on that, you got to say they're settled, and they're probably going to achieve third place. And in fourth, I've gone with Chelsea, and I've gone with Chelsea because I just think that even though I don't particularly rate Frank Lampard as a manager, I still think he's got a long, long way to go. I think they benefited massively last season from the fact that Arsenal were terrible, had to sack a manager. Tottenham were terrible, had to sack a manager. I think that really worked in Chelsea's favour. But I think on paper, I'd still say that they have probably the best squad of the rest. And so for me, they come in at fourth. I've gone Arsenal fifth because I've been really impressed by what I've seen from Mikel Arteta. And I still think that Arsenal have some really good players in and around the squad. And I've gone Spurs sixth because as much as, this documentary's pulled the wool over everybody's eyes and made them think that Jose Mourinho is the best again, I still don't think that squad at this moment in time is good enough. I don't think Højbjerg changes your fortunes. And I look at Spurs' business, Doherty as well. They're good signings, but are they enough to propel them up to that next level? I just can't see it.
Spurs post lockdown. How many league games did they lose? One.
One.
But
It's not bad form, is it?
It's
better than
not
Mickey
bad
Mouse
form,
trophy.
but
There was a Michael Oliver special as well. That was.
it's not bad form. But what the point I'm trying to make is this is not because it's Spurs. You guys will know that I've said for years that I don't think Mourinho is at that level anymore. I don't think he's operating in that top level, and I feel he's just below that. Add to that I don't think the signings Spurs have made so far, and they might go on to do more and change my view, but I don't think those signings are so game changing that they will be the difference between you finishing sixth and fourth. I just don't see it.
I think the issue is that there's certain clubs in the league that, well, probably only Man United and Liverpool, where players will go from other countries, regardless of whether they qualify for the Champions League, to those two teams because of the stature of the two teams. Possibly even City because of what they play. When Spurs and Arsenal aren't in the Champions League, certain players just won't go there. And that is just like Paul Pogba went to Man United when they weren't in the Champions League, signed for 100 million. So I know what you mean about
It's money. Yeah, it's money.
It is, but I do also think that certain clubs like Man United, Man City, and Chelsea and Liverpool can, as well as, well, not Chelsea, but some players have always just said, I've always wanted to play for Man United, I've always wanted to play for Liverpool. They've grown up supporting those teams.
I think there's a lot of truth in what you say, but I think it's a slightly different reason. And Spurs and Arsenal, whether we like it or not, are in a very similar stature of club at the minute when compared to some of the others. And I think, if Daniel Levy brings in a big name to the room at the negotiating table and he says, I'm going to sign you and I'm going to sign 2 or 3 other big players around you, the guy's going to say, you ain't fooling me, sunshine. You ain't fucking buying anyone else. And it's basically me carrying this sack of shit. And Arsenal's the same, I guess, where, Man United could convince Paul Pogba that they're at the start of a new project. Michael Arteta's... Michael? Sounds better, I like that. Mikel Arteta has got that aura about him where he could probably convince a player that we're going in the right direction. But even so, it's not the same draw as the other sides, and Tottenham certainly isn't. So I think there's that as well. The convincing that it's part of a bigger project, and that more players are going to come to join, and there's an end goal. Where I think Arsenal and Tottenham have failed to improve the squad for so many seasons in a row that it's a much tougher sell to a player, isn't it?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Right, let's quickly go around and get your surprise package of the season. So in terms of the teams now that you expect to overachieve, let's have those. Alavi, who are you?
Shall I do the letdown as well? Because it will be. Shall I do them both together?
Yeah,
okay. So this is the reason I accidentally said Newcastle earlier. So my surprise is Newcastle. I based it on the fact that when I looked at the odds, they were joint third favourites to go down. So I guess my surprise is that not only do I not think they'll go down, I actually think they'll possibly finish in the top 10. I think despite the Saudi offer going wrong and then enduring 13 years of, Mike Ashley, and, once they've gone this 5-6 weeks without Dubravka, as soon as he's back, if they're able to sign your Callum Wilsons, your Chris Woods, they've already signed
they've got Wilson.
Left back, Jamal Lewis.
They've got
Wilson.
They've got Wilson now. They've got Fraser.
So if they've got, we've got Fraser now. If they've got Jamal Lewis as well at left back, which they have from Norwich, I believe. Rob Holding on loan?
Possibly. I think with that one, I think we're waiting to see who's fit and who's not for Arsenal, because I think that was very close to happening last week. And it seems as though Arsenal have just put a pause on that because they're not sure about the fitness levels of some of the others.
He's not a bad player for Newcastle standard, is he? And if you add that to the Maverick sort of Saint Maximin and Almiron.
Another overhyped flop.
You reckon? I think Saint Maximin's brilliant.
There's one of these every year at Arsenal, isn't there? There's an Arsenal player under 19.
Sorry, he's talking about Holding.
No,
he's obsessed, you see.
Yeah, he's going to be Bobby Moore, and now he disappears.
I think Saint Maximin's just, when he turns it on, he's on another level. So I'm basing my surprise on, the fact that the bookies have got them third favourites to go down. I think they'll finish in the top 10. I think the letdown, on the other hand, will be Leicester. They won 4 out of the last 17. Lack of depth. Obviously, no club can preempt every eventuality, but with you saw a big blow Pereira's, and you think if that player of that position can be such a big blow, it's actually quite worrying. They've let Chilwell go as well, haven't they? What happens when Jamie Vardy gets injured? I rate Jamie Vardy highly, as people that listen to the podcast know, but what happens then if he gets injured? I know they're linked to the Celtic forward Edouard, but I can't see a club that are looking to replace, defenders like Chilwell with, youngsters like Luke Thomas coming through as a team that, and it goes back to Dan's point about momentum after the lockdown, because this is a really unusual situation where we've only got a few weeks. Like, I forgot that it was the Premier League this week, genuinely. Like, it just came back around so quickly. So it is almost like having an international break that's a little bit longer. And if you have lost 4 out of the last 17, then, so I think Leicester could... where did they finish last season? 5th? I think?
Yeah.
From memory? Yeah. So put it this way, I can't see them finishing in the top 7.
Yeah, I think they're 2 really, really good shouts. Just to add to the Newcastle point, I think, when you think about sort of everything that's gone on this summer, it looked as though the takeover was going to happen. People were sort of jumping for joy. That's fallen apart. But to Newcastle's credit, they've still gone out and done some decent business. And I think that many people feared that when the takeover didn't happen, that they were going to get back into this Mike Ashley slump and they weren't going to sign anyone and they would again be battling relegation. But the addition of Ryan Fraser on a free, Callum Wilson, Jamal Lewis is coming. I think they've signed Jeff Hendrick from Burnley as well. He's a decent midfield player, Steve Bruce type of player, I would say. I don't expect to see Newcastle necessarily pushing on for the European places, but I think they'll finish in a solid mid-table position. I certainly think that's possible. And Leicester, for me, is an excellent shout with a flop of the season. We always talk about, or I always moan about Brendan Rodgers. I think he's highly overrated. And I think he's coming to that point where his side are going to fall apart. And it won't be long before we start hearing about Brendan Rodgers potentially moving on again. Luca, let's have your surprise package. So you told us your surprise flop, which is Liverpool. You think
Yeah,
they're going to finish...
and just to put that in context, like Liverpool have set a high bar, so it's a flop. It's a flop based on their standards. I think Liverpool will lose a few games. They'll lose 4 or 5 games at least, and they'll be rattling around 3rd place as opposed to 1st. So that's the flop for Liverpool. To upset our friend earlier on, who had them in the predictions to go down, I think Southampton are going to be the surprise package this season. I think Southampton are going to finish Southampton are going to be in and around where Wolves were last season, mixing it up for 6th, 7th, 8th place. I think they're going to have a really good year. I think they've got goals in the side. They're playing progressive football. They've got a few gaps at the back line, but it's not dreadful by any means, and they've got a reasonable goalkeeper. But I think when you see a team lose a game of football 9-0 at home in front of their own fans, and they can rally around and turn that position around comfortably, you see a bit of character in that squad as well. And I think Southampton are going to have a really good season. So they'll be the surprise packages. My tip for a surprise package and certainly a top 10 finish in the end, but mixing it around, 7th, 8th, 9th place, maybe a little cup run as well.
Yeah, good shout. Interesting to see how they do. My surprise package, and I know I had a bit of an issue picking this one because when I was thinking about surprise packages, I was kind of thinking by saying this team, am I underselling them in the first place? And the team I'm going to pick is Everton. Now, Everton, they've been spending money for a little while now. It's not new. There was that season where they famously bought about 4 number 10s who all flopped horribly. They've always, in recent seasons anyway, they've gone and spent significant amounts of money, but not really got that level of success that they've been after. And I think that Everton could push for the top 7, top 6 this season. And I look at some of the signings they're making at the moment, and the reason I back them now is because I'm a huge fan of Carlo Ancelotti's. I think he came in December, midway through last season, around the same time, I think a day apart actually from Mikel Arteta. And he came in and he inherited a side that were vastly underperforming, turned it a little bit around, did Duncan Ferguson, but they were still way off where they needed to be. He's taken stock in the second half of the season. He's shown some really encouraging signs in a number of performances. I think back to their game against Liverpool at Goodison Park, where they turned in a really good, solid defensive display. And I think Carlo Ancelotti is someone you can trust, and therefore we've seen Everton now give him the money to go out and bring in the players that he thinks can improve this side. And they've brought in Alan from Napoli, excellent central midfield player. James Rodriguez needs no introduction, but again, someone Ancelotti knows well, someone he's worked with in the past. And they've added this evening Abdoulaye Doucouré to that as well. So I really feel like Everton are a side who, can now finally push on and compete for a top 7, top 6 spot. And they're getting the right players in, but they've also, most importantly, got the right man at the helm. And the fact that he's been able to attract somebody like James Rodriguez, for me, shows you that Everton are serious players now. Everton are really, really serious players. And I'm looking forward to seeing sort of what they bring to the table this season. In terms of my flop of the season, I wasn't going to go with Leicester, but Alavi's convinced me of Leicester. That's a really, really good shout. But I'm not going to pick them for the sake of the fact that I didn't pick them in the first place. I'm going to go with Burnley. Burnley, they're always sort of around mid-table. You never really worry about them going down. Very strong side in terms of the physicality that they bring to the table.
Didn't DDL have them to go down like 3 seasons in a row?
I think I had them in one of them and they didn't. But
they had them 1 season to go down. I think they finished about, I don't know, 3rd. But,
I feel
they
like
won the Champions League. Yeah.
I feel like with Burnley, you look at them and you all the good things about them are that they're determined, that they're organised, and all of that. I had somebody telling me the other day that they actually play good football, and I dismissed that straight away. Nonsense.
Yeah.
Nonsense. But
who said that?
I mean, someone that was talking about Burnley. I can't remember exactly where. But
Sean Dyche?
Did he have a gravelly voice?
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like now with and I know I used it as a point to sort of beat Brighton with, but I think Brighton are trying to play a more progressive style under Graham Potter. I think that West Brom under Slaven Bilic are going to play a better brand of football. I feel like, Leeds under Marcelo Bielsa, you're going to get a decent level of football. Southampton, another side who are very progressive. I feel like there's going to come a point, and it may not be this season, maybe it'll be the next or the season after that, but there will be a season where Sean Dyche's caveman football gets left behind. And with an increasing number of teams looking to improve the way they play and looking to progress their games, I feel like this could be that year where Burnley do fall behind and struggle.
What does a Burnley flop look like, though?
A Burnley flop to me looks like just avoids relegation. Because they've been finishing near enough mid-table. So, you look at
put it this way, none of the listeners really had them in the bottom 3 today. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that says it all.
Exactly. And interestingly, actually, nobody's spoken about West Ham United, which
someone did shout them as a relegation.
But I mean, from us 3, no one's mentioned them, and they're normally a car crash.
Yeah, I did think about it.
I was convinced at one point this season they were going to go down.
Yeah. I think we were hoping rather than...
Yeah, I was really... but you looked at they had a run of fixtures towards the end of the season that were hideous, and they just managed to pull out a couple of home wins and regrettably got out of trouble, which was a shame for everyone involved.
They did well.
Interesting stuff. Right. That brings us to the end of this week's edition of the Social Club. Thank you to every single one of you for joining us live. Over 150 of you watching us live at the minute. If you haven't smashed the like button, please do so. And before we lock off, just going to give you a brief reminder of how you can become a patron of the show. If you head over to patreon.com/the Chronicles of a Gooner, you can sign up for £3 per month and you will receive access to exclusive content, priority when calling in on the fans show, priority when submitting questions for our experts. And we're due to get Adrian Clark back on in the next week or so. Of course, that show went really, really well. Thank you to everyone.
Yeah, it was really good, man. Really good.
Cheers, man. And thank you to everyone that tuned in, because there was over 25,000 views on YouTube alone on that one. So a big cheers to everyone who tuned in for that. And also, once you've been a member for 3 months, you will get a gift from us. Yeah, that will be on its way to you in the post as well. So that's how you become a patron. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Big thank you to our sponsors, TV Sports Blog. And we'll be back with another show. We'll be back next week looking at the first round of Premier League fixtures. So until then, take care, stay safe, and have a good week.